Hello YouTube, vinygee here. It's quite windy here today. Probably going to get really rained on. If you have a look over there, the clouds are pretty black. So I'm on my weekly commute to the doctor's, hobbling along, and while I'm there I'm going to make an appointment to get a whooping cough vaccine or vaccination. Now, how society has changed. I mean, you know, I was watching a Canadian project one day on television regards to how to increase the amounts of food we intake. And so it's genetic. It's all genetic based. For example, in Canada, they couldn't grow tomatoes properly because of some of the cold temperaments. It would freeze the flower and kill any chance of getting a tomato. So they worked out that by genetically crossing the DNA of the plant with a certain fish that didn't freeze in freezing conditions, they actually managed to grow a tomato plant, and it was scientific. And in this documentary they had giant salmon, chickens that couldn't walk because they were so big, and stuff like that. So it was quite interesting to see actually what they were doing at I guess you could say, a DNA level, nuclear level, whatever level you want to call it. Which brings me back to the vaccination subject. Now, there's a lot of people these days, I don't know if you'd call them conspiracy theorists or whatever, but everyone has their own view and they're entitled to it. So this video is basically my own view and perception of things and how it actually works for me. I was watching a documentary, another doco. Doco is a documentary, for those of you who don't know what the word doco is. And it was on India and the Ganges River, which is probably one of the most polluted rivers in the world. I can't remember, I was on a video, I saw it as well, Shocking Asia it was called. You know, where they don't bury their dead, they burn them. So they send them down the river, they set them alight, and they can't afford enough wood to burn the body. So you got these carcasses of dead people floating in the river and stuff like that. And you have a look at the foreshore, the edge, and there's all these kids swimming in it. Kids! In the documentary they stated that if one of us Westerners were to take a dip in this river, we'd most likely get very sick. Very sick. Now the human body is a very intricate piece of something. It's very intricate in how it works. So when it comes to vaccinations, do they work? Well, I believe they do, for the simple reason that it is building up your immune system. And I do understand that there can be allergic reactions, but and in severe cases these allergic reactions can cause death. I fully agree with all that, and that's probably part of something that's gone wrong with the DNA. So I've booked my whooping cough vaccination. I'll get that on Saturday, and apparently it's to protect the little baby that's coming into the new world very soon, my grandson. And yeah, I have no qualms about getting any vaccination. Now I'll get back onto talking about vaccinations. You know, there's always someone that's going to argue that, you know, vaccinations are no good, and to some extent I do agree. to some extent, because you know, people do get allergic reactions, and unfortunately sometimes there's something wrong there, you know, whether it's in the vaccine or whether it's that person's human DNA, how it reacts to the vaccine itself. But one thing that makes me understand vaccination and that they do work is, for example, the fact that they have found humans, ancestors of humans, I don't know, not monkeys, but upright walking hairy critters, you know, that have died at very early ages, like between 25 and 35. So we now live a hell of a lot longer, and that's been a direct result of what I believe is vaccinations. I mean, you have a look at the history of the Black Plague, you have a look at the history of leprosy, the history of infections, and the effects penicillin have had on the whole community. I understand that fully, but that's not to say that there are things in this world that I question. For example, chemotherapy. I mean, what the hell's all that about? When you think about it, yes, okay, it might work, but the reality is it only works because of how resilient the human body is. That takes down your immune system. Now, the human body is capable of regenerating cells and all that sort of stuff. It does get a little bit worse as you get older. You heal slower, you find it harder to get over your normal common colds and things like that, and that's probably because we get lax as we get older. You know, yeah, I've had a tetanus shot. You know, what the hell do people think a tetanus shot is? I've stood on a really rusty nail, and I know it got infected pretty bad, and I went and got a tetanus shot straight away, and I tried to keep them up. So then I started looking at the bird flus and the avian flus. You know, they were the next said big doomsday disease that was going to take out a hell of a lot of people. And you research what caused the avian flus, and it all comes back down to farming. So not only are vaccinations important for our farming, but also as human beings. For example, animals do get sick, and they need to be vaccinated when they're massively contained for human consumption. That's how I call it. But then these scientists started playing God. For example, my wife's uncle was a chicken farmer, and he had 5 big pens, and there was 30,000 what they'd like to call free-range chickens in them at a time. Now, how the system worked here is the little chicks would get delivered to him, and they'd already been injected with all their vaccinations, so they'd survive, and then he would get the food delivered from the same company, and basically he got paid for caretaking after these chickens till they reached a viable age to go to the processing plant, you could say. His daughter tried to keep some of these chickens as pets. I mean, you got a chook, you have a pet, right? Problem is, they'd only live till they're 13 weeks old. They'd be fully grown, and that was it. And that's due to, you know, these genetically modified processes to try and get a chicken to grow quicker, so they can grow chicken quicker, make more money, shareholders, blah blah blah, all that sort of crap. And I know that I'm going backwards and forwards with this, but back to the avian flus. How they came about was that Asian culture has two major ingredients in their foods, which is ducks and which is pork. Now, these farmers, obviously they're not getting paid much, so they tried to kill two birds with one stone, so to say. So what they were doing is farming pigs and ducks together, which here in Australia our farming industry is strictly controlled. For example, if you are a beef farmer, you're not allowed to farm anything else but beef. If you're a pork farmer, you can't farm anything else but pork on that property. And they have quarantine areas and all that sort of stuff set aside. And if you read up on the avian flus, they actually derive from Asia, and it was because of the farming process, and it was all a monetary thing at the expense of human beings, because some people did die from this avian flu, but they did manage to create vaccines. They changed their ways and rectified that situation. So I'm home now and I'm going to end this video. My thoughts on vaccination: it does work. It does. Thanks for watching. I hope you like and subscribe. Thank you.